Hi, everyone. I'm Steve here again with Pastor Victor Brote. Thanks for being with us, Victor.
Good to be here.
All right, so let's talk about investing, how to make money. And there's obviously many ways to do it. There's your labor. And Victor and I are both business people. You know, we've owned multiple businesses. For me, health clubs, and for Victor, construction companies and other types of businesses. But let's I'll let you start about how people can maximize their income. And of course, we're looking at it trying to look at it anyway, from a godly perspective, and that we don't own any assets, we just manage them for God. So what are your first thoughts?
One of the things I keep seeing that many people, when they look at investing, it's sort of like they shoot for the moon. They expect to become rich on some little bit of gossip or hype or somebody selling a program and you listen to that. And there's a difference from a biblical basis. You're looking at investment long term. You're looking at kind of honest gains. I think there's, at least for me, you have to see what that business is doing. Are they abusing their employees? You can't go with that. Are things going on that are subversive? You can't go with that.
You're talking about investing in a company like where you would buy stock. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, basically that. But we just talked about Bitcoin before we came on, and I know a lot of people have gotten themselves into it because they hear about people who become very well off because of it. And then they don't hear about those same people who lost everything and ran for the hills and panicked. There's a kind of consistency that's a biblical consistency of investing that is different than what our culture often goes into. It's just over here, over there, with the shiny object. And we grab for those things. And when we think about investing, and I heard something to me that was really fascinating, is you take a person who is using biblical principles compared to another person without those principles, and their whole looking at life is different. It's for the Christian, the committed believer in the Bible, it's a long-term, constant process where it's almost as if, and they discovered, it's almost as if there's because of the foundation, there's a reverse sort of thing that goes on. You're going after this stuff. You're hopping after things, and you don't budget. It's everything today, and you don't really think about tomorrow. And I think there's a responsibility. I know from the biblical perspective, there's a responsibility to provide for your family in an even-handed manner. And what they discovered is those people who tithe are the same people who save. They're the same people that go through a process of budgeting. And because they budget, their whole life is different. They're not up against the wall and cornered. They have a different perspective to things when they control their money. And in our culture today, it's almost as if our money controls us. And there's something upside down about that. We're to take those opportunities and use them in a wise manner, not just blindly rush forth and spend. We want to see something done for God's kingdom. And so we give. We want to see our family protected. So we have things like methods of watching out for our family. through investments. Maybe some people have insurance, life insurance, all these things, so that we provide for our family. And that changes our world. And it's a good sort of change. People in that same investment article or interview that I heard just recently, it is people are more at peace. Yeah, I know there are Christians that do crazy things, but overall, mathematically, people, they have the world kind of in hand, rather than a tiger by the tail. So I'll stop there and let you kind of go on a little bit.
Yeah,
But it's so important to see.
those are good points, and I want to give people some ideas on how you can do this. And the tithing thing, if you guys want to know more about me, you can go to stevemain.com, hear my testimony and everything. It's all a miracle. I grew up poor, and everything has been a miracle for me in the financial areas. But it's fun when your whole focus is to help people. There was a quick story, but I wanted to get into, investing in small business. We can talk about Bitcoin, real estate, and how these all affect your portfolio. How you take a higher risk, you could hit a home run. You less risk, that's more of a long-term thing. And I think you want to do some of everything. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But when those resources come, that's when it gets fun. And I had a guy in one of our gyms, he was telling me that his brother was in a grocery store and he saw this woman and she was just sobbing, and she had like 4 kids and just sobbing going through the grocery store, and everyone was kind of going around her, avoiding her. And, kind of like stuff that, what story does that remind you of in the Bible, where everyone's going around the injured person, the Good Samaritan. So, his cousin goes up to this woman and says, "What is wrong?" And she said, "Well, my husband just left me and we have no money. We have no income. I have these kids and we don't know what to do." They had nothing. And so this guy was telling me about that in one of our gyms. And I said, that's the stuff Widows Mite likes to help with. And we're able to do that because of the resources that come in. So we went and I said, don't tell them where this is coming from. And so he had a lot of fun with it. Went and bought, clothes for the kids and food and just things that they need, toothpaste and all kinds of stuff. And he filmed it. It's going to be online. And I can't wait to see it. And the little kids were like going, "Who did this? Who did this?" And he just said, "Well, I kind of did it. You could blame it on me or whatever." And they were just hugging him, and he just had so much fun with it. And then here, my wife and I are behind the scenes just hearing these stories, and I love it. I'm going, don't tell them about us. And so that was really cool. And to be able to help someone. And he said, "You should have seen the look on these kids' faces, Steve." So anyway, I can't wait to see the video that he puts up on that. But those are the things that you can do. And it's not your money. When you let the money, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil, not the money itself. It's the love of it. But don't think money's not dangerous. It's like, oh, look at that. Oh, so you got to be careful.
As a pastor, I've seen it so often. And I'm thinking about, a star. If it sucks in everything, it's always empty. It always needs more. And those black holes are just there's a truth in life where people go through kind of like sucking in all these needs. There is something just joyful and wonderful about being able to give. I grew up poor. We both had parents that were teachers, and so they had made a commitment to this idea of teaching, and you don't make a lot of money doing that, and so we lived poor too. And when I was able to give what to me seemed like an impossible amount here and there, it just blessed my heart so. And I see the battle within where I'm trying to pull stuff into my life. It's just an empty way to live life, where when you give out, there's something fulfilling that is really, really good. It frees you. It makes you, I believe, more happy, more content. You have a purpose. And when it comes to knowing about the Bible, it gives you purpose. What you do when you give out, you're glorifying God. And it's such a privilege. It's such a wonder. And I just encourage people to push themselves a little further and a little further, and you'll be standing on just a mountain of glory at some point. And you look back and say, God did that through his humble servant, his little servant. You change people's lives, and the giving out is entirely different mentality than pulling in. And I've watched so many people that they think they're poor when they're really rich, and they can never fill that gap in their life. And one of the things that we need to invest in is in others and in the kingdom, and somehow making good things happen for people around us. And oh man, I hesitate to go on and on, but I've seen people that are very well to do, and it's like they can't get enough. It's always more.
They're
And
poor.
it's always empty. Yeah, they're poor. They think they're rich, but they're poor. So it's
Yeah.
important to keep that in mind.
Yeah. They have a lot of money, but they're poor. And the widow's mite can buy a lot. And,
Yeah.
it's, I think that's the first focus, especially if you're a Christ follower. You want to look at what you're really investing in is in the kingdom. And God doesn't need our money. He's not going, oh, I hope he does more. I really need him to give money. No, he can drop money out of the sky. He doesn't need our money, but it's an honor to serve him in that way. So I think that's the first thing. And that's a reason why, because of my attitude as a young boy, giving what I had, it's grown into something a lot bigger. Uh, so I think that's the first thing to focus on is what you're investing in as far as your giving, because that's huge. Now, you got commercial real estate. I own some commercial real estate. My businesses happen to operate in on that commercial real estate, and that's a hedge against inflation. So that's a good thing. And the real estate people, they don't become these multi billionaires overnight. They can become billionaires. Donald Trump became a billionaire in real estate, but that took his whole life. And the people that invest in businesses are the ones that become billionaires sometimes overnight. When you're investing in a business and then it goes public and now you have all this stock, that's how that happens. And that's rare, but I like to kind of look at kind of everything. I own some Bitcoin, not a lot, but I own some. I know you own some too. I own some commercial real estate and I own small businesses. I like to put my money into the small businesses and that type of thing. I own some stocks and some conservative stuff. Not a lot, because I put my efforts into the small businesses. I like to own the real estate where my businesses operate, because that's really a hedge against inflation. And if you own tangible items, tangible things like gold, you own things like silver, it's a hedge against inflation. Now, I'm going to give you an example. This is how gold works. And this is how I'm going to give you an example of how it hedges against inflation. If you took an ounce of gold and you used it to buy a custom made suit back in the Old West, let's say in the 1800s, during the gold rush, it would buy you, an ounce of gold would buy you a very nice custom made suit. Well, guess what? That same ounce of gold right now is going to buy you a very nice custom made suit. Because the custom made suit, yes, the price went up. You buy a really nice custom made suit, I don't know, way back when for what? $50? Is that about what the price of an ounce of gold was? So $50. Now it's over $2,000. Okay, you're going to buy the same quality suit now, just like you did then. Why? Because the gold is not inflating, the dollar's inflating. So that kind of puts it in perspective. If you own commercial real estate, you don't care about inflation. Why? Because dollar-wise, your property is inflating. It's going up. Is it going up in value? No, not really. The value of the dollar is going down. So if you guys have questions, put them in the comment section. But that's kind of how the commercial real estate works. If you're young and you start putting money in the stock market, my background is a financial background. I own health clubs, but my background is finance. I'm an MBA with a concentration in finance, and I have some other certifications that have to do with finances. So if you guys have questions, put them in the comment section about any type of investment. I'll give you my opinion. I'm not some big guru investor. I'm a small business owner. So that's really where my knowledge has grown, or where my blessing has grown. So, there's a lot more. I have more to say on this, but go ahead, Victor.
I started investing in gold a long, long time ago, before most people listening have been born. But if I remember correctly, it was somewhere around $35 an ounce, and I still have some of that gold. And it grows over time. It looks really good on paper because that $35 worth of gold is now worth a couple thousand. We're just talking in rough terms. But it looks really good on paper, but it almost just essentially keeps up with what is going on in the economy. So that is kind of, to me, and I wanted to say too, the way you start investing is just a bit at a time, not huge amounts. You just keep at it. And over time, it really, really adds up. It's like paying off a house. We're talking about interest and investment. If you buy a house and you do the typical thing with the bank over 30 years, you really bought two houses. You bought a house for the bank and you bought a house for yourself. The more you harness the investment process, the better off you're going to be in not paying interest and using that interest. So a little bit of investment over time adds up and doubles and maybe triples. And that is one thing that I want to really point out, is that we live today in a situation where the government has spent so much money that every 100 days, our debt increases by $1 trillion. $1 trillion, our debt increases. So we get behind and more behind, and we're at a place where there's some real challenges that are ahead because the government just prints more money and your money becomes less and less valuable. So it's almost as if if you don't invest, if you don't, it, you lose out on a huge opportunity. It's just, it's the river is moving so fast that if you don't allow for that, it'll just overwhelm you. And I see a lot of folks that are just, they put everything on their credit card. I had employees that did that, try to get them out of it. It's a trap that just goes in a circular thing. And it's almost like, watching a bug go down a toilet bowl. It just kind of circles the bowl for a while and you see the trap happening. And that's what our economy is like. And so you have to be careful to set money aside, because I mean, I don't even look at credit cards, but I'm told that some of them are at 30% or thereabout. That means that within about 3 years, your debt doubles. And you buy the house, and then you also buy an extra house for the bank, and now you're buying another extra house on your credit card, and it doesn't get you anywhere. And so you have to think in a mindset of, how can I use money wisely instead of allowing money to just pull me along. I'm not sure if I'm explaining, but
Yeah.
it's so vital to get your hands around this.
Yeah, you got to calculate it. And is Victor saying don't buy a home? No. Don't have a mortgage? No, he's not saying that. But because once you buy a home, yes, you're paying interest and all that, but that stops the inflation. When you invest, it's a harness, or it's a hedge against inflation. And you start early, $50 a month, putting it in the stock market or whatever. And I've been hearing since my mid-20s, since I got into this stuff, oh, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. Yes, it is going to crash, but nobody knows when. You have all these prophets out there telling you it's going to crash next year. And yes, they're all going to be right sooner or later. We know that because, if you read the Bible, yes, someday it's going to crash, but you can't tell me when. And that's the problem, because while you're waiting for you're waiting for that crash, you left probably hundreds, maybe millions of dollars on the table because you thought the crash was coming next year and you were scared. So you can't do it that way either. You need to have some stuff on the side and invest it over here for a crash, but you can't put all your eggs in one basket, in the crash basket, because you don't know and nobody knows when it's going to happen. Yes, the economy is held together by, it's a mirage, the Fed and the interest rates and printing money and all that stuff. But how long can they do that? I don't know, maybe hundreds of years more. We don't know when it's going to crash. Will it someday? Yes. Why? Because everything is, when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, everything is really labor. And I've given this example in some of the other videos. When I hold up a chair and show these kids, what is this? They all say it's a chair. And I say, no, it's labor. Someone had to make this chair. Labor went into that chair. So everything is just some type of a barter system. And that's what you have to realize. At the end of the day, it's all a barter system. I can sell that chair for paper money and then go buy two more and do it over and over and over. All I'm really doing is transferring labor back and forth. So you have to keep that in mind and spread it out, and don't listen to these people that are predicting exactly this or exactly that, because they don't know, and they will get it right eventually. See, I told you so. You didn't tell me when. I can be an incredible prophet too. I'll say it right now. The economy is going to crash. Sooner or later, I'm going to be right, but I didn't tell you when.
And I followed a number of people just out of kind of entertainment, and I've seen so many people kind of like, and this is especially in Bitcoin. Oh, run after this thing, and here's my investment portfolio and how it all works, and this is going up. I'm making all this money, and then it drops out. The bottom drops out, and then they panic. The typical thing in America is to invest while everything's going up, and then sell after everything's gone down. You lose a lot of money. A particular guy in mind, I won't embarrass by the name, but I had $1 million of Bitcoin, and all of a sudden, it almost all went away. Almost all. And then this year, it's been slowly, the major Bitcoin has been slowly going up, and it's starting to look good again. And there's a process that it's cyclical, unless the world ends. And, probably Steve and I feel like, well, I don't know. I don't think the world's going to last long as a pastor. But I also need to plan and be responsible for my family. So I have a plan that if the world lasts, we're going to survive okay. If everything falls apart, you can't do anything about that. You can't hold on so tight. You have to have this perspective of God being in charge and in control, and do your best. And that's what you're accountable for, not for betting the farm on the roll of dice. That is foolish and stupid. And so we have to recognize when we are getting into that mindset of betting the farm, and just be that kind of plotter that is faithful to reasonable investments. Can't run after everything. Solomon, back in Ecclesiastes, recognized that the best thing to do is to spread out your investments. So we have investments that will work well under crisis situations, or some gold and silver is often a thing that's looked at. And then there's some stocks, which are more risk. I don't know if at this point we've gone pretty long, but do you want to explain risk a little bit?
Yeah. The risk correlates with the reward. So when you take more risk, you have more upside potential. If you're investing in a small business or starting a small business, you have risk, but the upside potential is infinite depending on the business. So you have factors like supply and demand, and they say, just do this, just buy low and sell high. Way easier said than done, because the inexperienced, and yeah, you're laughing, the inexperienced investor always ends up doing the opposite. They always buy high and sell low. Oh no, I don't want to lose more. I don't want to lose more. And they sell at the wrong time. Two things you want to avoid when you're investing. Two emotions: fear and greed. Fear and greed will make you a bad investor. So you have to get those emotions away from you to be a solid investor. And then you want to take, to talk about what you brought up, you want to take some risk, but not all. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's called diversifying, because you take that risk because you want to hit those home runs. And if you hit 1 out of 10, I've maybe hit 1 out of 10 with all my risky things that I've done, but that's okay. The one that hits out of 10 have been really big for me. But you want money over here too, just plodding away, growing slowly, and growing securely with less risk. So is that kind of the explanation you're looking for?
Yeah, people don't seem to understand that idea where you just plod along. And I have just seen it in so many lives as a pastor, where, pastor, I can't afford to give to the church. And then it seems like almost instantly I find out what they're giving to in their life. And it's giving to themselves, and it's just an empty pathway. and I want people to be free from that burden of just more and more and more. I know I'm repeating myself, but I watch people repeat that idea again and again. And when you're trying to suck in, fear happens easier. Uh, you make the bad decisions because you're using a model that's full of fear and greed. And yeah, those are the two things that bring us to the end of ourselves. And we have to have a plan that's different. And when you plan to give, when you plan to invest, it over the process works out really well. I sat down. My family had a foreign exchange student, and then my wife and I ended up traveling around Europe, and so we met up with the family and the foreign exchange student, and he sat down. He was in Germany, and he had in his little book a little piece of gold. I think it was maybe a quarter ounce, and every year he'd go through what that gold was worth. And eventually, as Hitler came into power, that gold was worth everything. And the money was, people would go with their wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread. And we live in a time where people have over promised a nation themselves. You budget your family that way, and you'll take everything you got to try and get a loaf of bread at some point if things fall out, and that's called lack of planning. And when we run our lives in that manner, it's a disaster waiting to happen. So
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, and we'll cut this off, is, fear will cause people to sell at the wrong time, and greed will cause them to buy at the wrong time. And my wife, just the real quick, the gold thing, got these things. They're called gold backs, and there's actual gold in the dollar bill. It's like a bill, but there's gold in it that equals the amount of the dollar. Well, she bought them, and now one of these bills is like worth $4. So that's a hedge against inflation also, and people can actually use these to buy and sell things. Anyway, you guys look into this stuff, and if you have questions, again, put them in the comment section. And Victor, thanks for being with us.
good to be here.